Hey everyone, I'm Jesse from the Janjo Zone. Welcome back, and if this is your first time here, well, this is the Retro Yu-Gi-Oh! Channel. So today we're talking about another historic deck. This is the third episode of this fairly new series, and if you have any suggestions for decks, let me know. So today we're talking about the January 2014 Jeff Jones Harpies. This is a deck I've been wanting to talk about. And the thing with this historic deck series, it's not necessarily retro Yu-Gi-Oh! In the sense of like 02 to 05. This is just any older formats, because there's just a lot of great decks I want to archive on this channel. Pretty much the main reason of this channel existing is for archival purposes, and also so you can have some fun with it. This is an interesting deck though. This deck was from ARG in Nashville, and this wasn't like a placing deck. This was actually a part of a grudge match. Yeah, this was against, I believe his name was Kevin Silva, who won the most recent ARG circuit and called Jeff Jones out. And there's video proof of this, and I'm going to link the whole video below, but here's just a quick sample of it.
I'll be the one to say it on here. I'll play Jeff Jones for any amount of money, up to 500. And I know he won't play because he's so cocky.
Okay, yeah, we'll play for $500. Let's go. All right, you gonna talk shit? You can talk shit to my face.
So yeah, that was pretty spicy right there. Calling Jeff Jones out. And Jeff Jones is not a duelist you want to mess with. This guy has been topping events between 2000 and I want to say 7 to like 2018. This guy's been around for a long time with a lot of top placing decks. So he knows what he's doing. He busts out his Harpy deck in a $500 duel against Silva. And yeah, Jeff Jones won. He won with his Harpy deck. You don't mess with this $500 winning deck. So we're going to talk about it today. Harpies is a kind of interesting deck. It's never been topping events. Even though they have some decent cards, they're very unique in the sense that they really like to play around the back row more than anything. They like to destroy back row cards. But he did kind of a stun variant. And there's a lot of great cards in here, and it's interesting comparing it to like other formats of Harpies, whether it's modern Harpies with Harpy Perfumers, or the Speed Duel one, or retro GOAT format Harpies, which I mean no one even played anyway. There wasn't really any great cards, but at this time, and by this was January 2014, there's decent Harpy cards. You got Dancer, Channeler, Harpy Queen. So you did have plenty of enough cards for a Harpy deck. Now the big decks around this time was like Fire Fists, Mermails, Heretics, Giria, that kind of stuff. So it was kind of interesting that he decided to play Harpies. In fact, actually in this event, ARG Nashville, it was Fire Fist that took the first place deck. Which makes sense. Most people there were playing Fire Fist, and everyone who was playing Heretic didn't do very well. But this wasn't the placing deck. This was the grudge match deck. And I think the interesting thing that you can first notice about it is that there's no Icarus attack. That is a big card that a lot of people are, hey, where's this deck? It would be better with Icarus attack. Well, hey, the guy won with this deck. I don't think he needed Icarus attack. But he didn't play Icarus attack, and there's some other cards he didn't play, and for his reasonings, with the case of Icarus attack. He's mentioned this in articles about previous Harpy builds, because he's been playing Harpies for a little bit by this point. And he didn't want to play Icarus attack mainly because it removes a monster from your field. He liked to keep that advantage, especially in this era where XZs were the big extra deck monster. So if you got rid of your monster, then that was one thing off the field. And plus you had other cards that could deal with on-field presence between Harpy's Hunting Ground. You had cards like Lightning Kidori, Diamond Direwolf. You had plenty of cards to take care of that sort of stuff. So he did mention that, because I believe this was before, I want to say, Channeler came out. And his previous build from the year prior, he didn't have a ton of Winged Beast monsters in his Harpy deck, but now he had plenty, so it's, you would think maybe he wouldn't want to add that Ick attack, but I guess he still had the idea of, well, I want to keep my monsters on the field if I need to use them for whatever, and if I need to take care of other stuff, well, that's fine too. So he played as Zephyros, the Elite, the Blackwing, which he tended discarded with Hysteric Parting, which you need to discard to activate one, so you can, you know, get a nice card in your graveyard to use its effect with. When it came to the main Harpy ladies, he actually played 2 Cyber Harpies and 1 Harpy Lady 1. This way you can get more targets for Hysteric Sign. And also with Cyber Harpy Lady, when going against decks like Fire Fist, you needed more offensive creatures, and Cyber Harpy with 1800 is a nice offensive creature. Plus, Harpy Lady 1 did give that 300 attack, and you did have Harpy Queen, so you did have a good amount of beaters in this too. Which, again, is important because, as I mentioned, Harpies is a very anti-back row deck, so having those beaters gives it that extra advantage. And you had Channeler, Dancer, and Queen as like the other 3 main ones. He really loved Dancer. This was his favorite one, with Channeler being a close second. And Harpy Queen was kind of like that obvious one where you can discard it to add a Hunting Grounds. That way you didn't need a Terraforming. Harpy's Pet Dragon is probably like the brick one, but he used that in case he needed to make like Xyz monsters. Plus, you know, Harpy's Pet Dragon is awesome. I would run it in any Harpy deck. Of course, now they're coming out with the Fearsome Fire Blast at this video, at this recording. It's OCG only, but, you know, I always like Harpy Pet Dragon. It was the unloved dragon. And then Thunder King Ryo is a great card for just floodgates. Book of Moon. Book of Moon's like kind of always a good card, I feel, because it always comes back up again. Elegant Egotist is great for special summoning a Harpy from your hand or deck. He actually considered running 2 of these, but I guess he only had room for 1. Hunting Ground does add attack to your Harpies, but also destroy spell trap on the field. Now, the thing with Hunting Ground is that it always has to destroy spell trap on the field when you summon a Harpy Lady card, which means that if your opponent doesn't have any and you have some, well, then it either has to destroy itself or another card. Thankfully, he's running a lot of trap cards to kind of mitigate this. Next, he's playing Hysteric Sign. Hysteric Sign, this was the reason why he didn't run Summoner Monk, because 1, he's not running a ton of spell cards, but 2, Hysteric Sign was that card that really, it did so much on its own. Like, you didn't need Summoner Monk when you have Hysteric Sign. You can add an Elegant Egotist to your hand, and then if it's in the graveyard, if you sent there that turn, you can add a bunch of Harpies to your hand. It was a lot of resources, which again helped with Harpy Lady 1, Cyber Harpy, and just all these Harpy cards. So you got a ton of resources with Hysteric Sign. Bottomless Trap Hole, it was just a good tech card. Again, a lot of cards just to deal with the opponent, a lot of banishing with D-Prison. Phoenix Chain, man, this was the card back then, wasn't it? You negate a monster effect and it can't attack, and if you need to get rid of it for whatever reason, if you need like a target for Hunting Ground, it will stay on the field. So that was a good benefit for that. Hysteric Party, again, another nutty Harpy card. Harpies are really good. In this, you can summon a ton of Harpies, which also worked really great for Xyz monsters. This is why he wound up running 3 Lightning Hidori. Mirror Force, this was kind of an interesting card. In this format, it was only ran at 2, and for a while, people didn't really realize that. And at some point within that recent time, players started to realize, hey, this card is at 2, and it's Mirror Force. It's a good, solid, clean effect. And Jeff Jones was definitely like, yeah, I agree on that. Let's run 2 in this. You had Mistake, which didn't really affect your deck because this prevented both players from adding cards from the deck to your hand except by drawing. Now, the only one this affected was Harpy Queen, but you did run Trap Stun in case you needed to turn off Mistake. And Trap Stun also worked if you needed to pop your own card with Hunting Ground and just, okay, I guess I'll negate traps this turn. So Mistake, and another Floodgate card. And Solemn Warning, 2,000 life points used to stop a spell, trap, monster effect, anything that like will special summon a monster. And then Torrential Tribute, which destroys all monsters on the field. That's great. It's another great destruction card like Hunting Ground. He didn't play Dark Hole in this. He just didn't like Dark Hole. Probably for similar reasons to not playing Icarus Attack. You don't want to get rid of your own monsters, and he wanted to keep all of his resources. Although the question could be asked, if you are running something like Hysteric Party, you can special summon them from the graveyard, but, you know, I guess it worked out for him. When it came to the extra deck, a lot of just, you know, solid cards. Lightning Kidori was a great card. Ice Beast Zerifying was kind of his, like, spicy tech. This was a card that people weren't playing, but he saw something and went, oh, this card is busted. It's 2 level 4 Winged Beast monsters, and it just gets really buff. That, again, that works for a deck that you needed kind of stronger attacker monsters, that he really gave that steroid boost to. I'm a little surprised he didn't play 3, but he definitely wanted to play 3 Lightning Kidori, because he found himself that he, throughout a game, from like beginning to end, he wanted to use Lightning Kidori, especially if he could summon more with something like Hysteric Party. A lot of other kind of generic cards like Steel Swarm Roach, and this is before like Silent Honor Arc or Exciton Knight were out. Abyss Dweller, one of the best Xyz monster. Diamond Direwolf, Cowboy. He's considered playing 2 Cowboys. And he did mention when like Honor Arc and stuff would come out, he would, you know, add those. Phantasmal Dragon, he only played 1. You kind of have to play it. You know, it had its use, and he did play a couple level 7s, Master Blades, Big Eye, Dracosac. He played also rank 4 Queen Dragon Djinn. A lot of general ones, but definitely his big ones were Zerifying and Lightning Kidori. His side deck, a lot of just, you know, just general cards. His favorite one though was Blackhorn of Heaven, which, when your opponent would special summon exactly 1 monster, you can negate it. He loved this card. Depending on the deck, this is all like a meta call kind of thing, so I won't go too heavy over it. 3 MSTs was probably the other big card, or like Light Imprisoning Mirror. Vanny's Emptiness. Remember when this card was illegal? Yeah. So yeah, Jeff Jones, yeah, this isn't like a tournament deck, but this series doesn't need to be tournament decks. I'm sure I'll cover other like casual decks. But this is definitely a really interesting deck, and definitely one of the first few I wanted to cover for this historic deck series. And I love Harpies, and I always like to see when they can do well, especially since they don't do well very often. But hey, if you're going to make a deck that's going to win you $500, I think Jeff Jones showed us how it's done.